Okay, welcome to another episode of the Best Kept Secrets in Healthcare. So today I've got a special guest, Dr. Chris Wolf from Seattle, Washington. He and I for years have been talking about exactly what we want to talk about today. And it is really about the current healthcare system and how we got here, because the current healthcare system really is flawed by design, which we'll get to. And so we have Dr. Wolf and I have been going down different rabbit holes trying to figure out, how we got to where we are. At one point, there was a kind of an even playing field. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we went into this whole crisis care model instead of healthcare model, which we'll get to. So, Dr. Wolf, thank you for being here. I know you're a busy man.
Yep.
We've been trying to get this together now for several months, and finally we got it together. And thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ray.
Well, so the current model, let's talk about that for just a second, isn't a healthcare model at all, right? I mean, there's no money and people getting well, staying well. The money is in treating symptoms and keeping people sick.
Yeah, the big money. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a disease care model, right? So, unless you're sick or, on the verge of dying or terminal or, have sort of some presentive symptom, there's really nothing much that can go on there for you, right? Like, I mean, sure, they do mammogram screenings and different things to that such, but not to the measure. I mean, it's still more of a, let's catch it, before it gets too bad or catch it when it's bad kind of system. So, and if you dig into this, like I have over the years, and I think I've probably forgotten more than most people will ever know on this. The individuals involved in this, going back to the Gilded Age, like the late 1800s and, early 1900s are really the same people that are involved in a lot of other, if you want to talk about some other conspiracy theories, right? But whether it's, the money system or the Federal Reserve or it's, the law, bar association or the laws that we have or our government or all those things, right? So it all kind of ties together, and it's certainly, it's about money, but it's also about a number of other things. And I think that, it can be a little bit tough for people to handle and grasp these types of things. But when it comes to like controlling people or, keeping them at a certain financial level or keeping them in a mindset where they're able to receive, when they control the media or all these things, like people are kind of subservient because they have to be, and they get put in situations because the whole system was designed together to do that. So, the big players in this, a lot of people know the name Rockefeller. He's, that family's been around for, ages, and a lot of books that they've created have made themselves to be heroes, right? Like the Rockefeller Foundation and all these different things, and the founder of Standard Oil. So he was the number one oil guy in the country. And, a lot of people don't know this, but the Rockefeller family is really an agent family of the Rothschild family from England, and who basically set up the central banking system, right? So that's convenient. And so, he kind of came into all of this after making his big oil money and put together a research institute, kind of a biomedical research institute back in 1901, and it turned into Rockefeller University. And through that process, basically eliminated natural healing methods or poo-pooed them, like calling them alternative, or, they even locked up natural doctors, whether that was a homeopathic doctor or whatever it might have been. It could have been a chiropractor, right? So prisons, he actually spent $100 million of his own money back then, which would be about 2.6 billion now, into doctors and researchers and creating what we now know as the AMA.
Now, when did this start? This was early 1900s?
It was all around, early 1900s. But he began that institute in 1901.
Okay.
So that's what kind of kicked the process in. And, they had the Flexner Report, which kind of made everything come together for them to be, hey, look, we got the valid research. We have scientific treatments, right?
Yeah,
but,
I did. I did a podcast on that Flexner Report. If you guys can go and check it out on the same channel. Yeah, that's very interesting, because it was like Rockefeller and Carnegie paid to have this so-called research done. And basically all it was they kind of like research done today. They'll basically, they tell them, this is the result we want, and we'll pay you to achieve this result. Right. And so they told this guy, this is what we're looking for. Go create this result. Basically, they considered everything that wasn't medical as what they call CAM, complementary alternative to medicine, which automatically now took you from the same playing level to now you're something less than because you're an alternative, right?
Mm-hmm. And then, and of course, then they let all of their scientific data become the mainstream, and they would, pump that into the colleges for medical school. And of course, if these schools didn't follow what they wanted, there wasn't any money because all the Congress and Senate was bought off to support this, right? And like, ooh, I don't want to hear that. Like, oh, the politicians in our government. Well, I think at this point in time, and it's 2025, right? Like, it's with the information age we live in, you got to have some sort of inclination that there's at least a bit of corruption, right? Well, based on what I know, there's a lot more than a bit. There's
Yeah.
a mountaintop of it.
Well, so
And
tell me this though. Why did they do this? I mean, speaking of money, I mean, so why would they start investing so much money? I mean, back then you said what, like 2 point some odd billion dollars.
it would have been 2.6 billion. Yeah, he put, I mean, probably back then close to half a billion, which would have been what, I don't know, 5 billion now into this, right?
Jeez.
Yeah, well, I mean, it kept everything. Well, they had a lot of people to pay off, right? When you do this kind of stuff, you can't, this went into further than just, our healthcare system. Like there was a lot going on, like even into, war history that we have in World War II with concentration camps and different chemicals that they used out of these things that they did it, in Auschwitz or, right.
Mhm.
And, so there's a lot going on here, and it's a lot bigger than just a school or, some congressman. Like everybody was bought off. So that's expensive, and you got to have big pockets for that, right? Which these guys do, because, when you're controlling the energy at that time, the oil, which still is the main thing we're using today, and you control the money system, you have the law system behind you, you have the media behind, like, I mean, it's endless, right? So that's why and how for these guys, I think the money's important, but the money isn't like for you and I, where we want to go buy a nice house or a cool, maybe get our kid a nice car for the right. Like these guys, it's about power,
Yeah.
right? And it's very different, like, I mean, when you get to where you can just blow, 100 million of your own money in 1900, you got
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I guess once you get enough money where you can pretty much buy anything you want, then I guess the only thing
Mhm.
beyond money is control, right? Power. And so they wanted
Well,
ultimate
right.
power.
And then they brought in the insurance industry, right? So there's another thing. And I've been thinking about this a lot since we were this, and, you think about inflation and put it into money terms, right? Like if you didn't have banks to lend money at reasonable rates, you wouldn't have inflated costs for things, because things would have to be more reasonably priced in order for people to pay for them, right? But
Hmm.
when you create a system that creates leverage, you can then inflate prices and then you get leverage against people, and it puts people into, what's called bondage or, you know, unrecoverable debt, which, well, look at our country. What are we, 36, 37, 38 trillion? I mean,
Hmm.
it's unrecoverable. It just is. And so, the insurance is not any different, right? So that was a whole nother thing where, okay, well, we can create this deal where people can have this insurance for what we know as disease care. And you can use this card whenever you have what you got to have a problem, right? And
Right.
so then you could access healthcare before, and it would be affordable and reasonable because you were paying out of pocket. But now you're paying these premiums, and everybody wants to use their insurance. It's collapsible because the prices are so high, right? So you get people, live their whole life, now they get sick, and then they lose everything, right? And they can't afford to pay for it. And so they created all this stuff. So it's actually pretty genius, honestly, like the whole thing coming together. And if you can see the whole picture, it's much easier to keep people, subservient in your system, as long as they're, taking pills and, deemed, if they have depression or they have this or they have that, you got to have a label.
Yeah.
Everybody's got something. And then now they're, have a job where they're stuck paying taxes all the time. They're paying inflated prices for things. They're drinking things that make them sick. They're taking in food that makes them sick. They're taking the poisons that they deemed were scientific that make them sick. And what are you left with? And of course,
Yeah.
we saw this with Coke. I mean, we had the is it ivermectin? Is that what it is? And a few of the other natural things that were brought out, even by, our own government saying, like, ooh, those things don't work. They're no good. Well, they've been doing that forever. I mean, John D. Rockefeller was doing that back then. He was, aside from putting doctors in prison, was actively creating campaigns, calling, any type of thing that wasn't their scientific AMA medical care alternative or not scientifically based or not worthy. Why? Because they don't make money off of it.
Right. Yeah. So let's start with that part of it, the healthcare side of things. So they looked at this, and I think what I read, they went in and they were like, okay, first of all, the Rockefellers had oil, petroleum, and at the time they were making petroleum like medicines, right? Potions and lotions or whatever. And they looked at what
Immunizations.
are ways I can disperse more petroleum, make more money. Well, at the same time, they looked at the different healthcare models: osteopathy, chiropractic, naturopathy, medicine. And medicine was the only one that really didn't fix any problems, right? They were basically treating symptoms. And good thing is their elixirs or their petroleum-based medicines, they could sell through that model. The people didn't get better, so they continuously, and just like the model today, the most successful drugs in the planet are the ones that people still have to cholesterol, blood pressure, diabetes, things that people, once you're diagnosed, you're on this drug the rest of your life. So they're reoccurring income. They don't have to go out and market and to create more income. You're there, you're a patient, you're on drugs till you die. And that's a great
Right.
model for them to make money, right?
Yeah, and a lot of other parts too is like those things they're giving you create other problems. So now you're taking, we get patients in, right? And just like you do, that they have a list. And the list was shorter when they began the whole thing, but as they got through and they stay in that medical model, the list gets longer because not only are they not getting better, they're having to deal with things that were created from the things they were taking from the start. And, it's like petroleum products that were put in, some of the drugs that they were making back, when and immunizations are highly addictive. And, not to mention other type of, carcinogenic type of effects on the body and different things. And people just don't question it. They just, it became, the AMA became like the holy grail of how things work because these guys have that ability. They have the money to do that. And, if they can get it through government and everybody thinks, well, it's government approved, well, it's got to be good. And, government's probably the biggest cartel on the planet. So,
Yep.
it, that's where it all comes together. And, these guys have it all figured out. And it's been going on for over 100 century still, and you've seen this like I do. You get these people in and you get them, even if they change their diet and they get their neck adjusted, it's amazing the changes that happen. They just got to get off the drugs,
Right.
Yeah. So, but
It's sad. It's sad because, people have been brainwashed their whole life, I mean, they took over the media. So everything's supported by the media. So the same people, they started the, medicine, sell their own, they sell the drugs, they take over the media. So now that the media only supports the medical approach, right? You don't see anything on TV about, chiropractic or upper cervical, anything like that. Obviously, I've had a couple times I was supposed to be on national television, once for the MS research and once for my book, and they came and filmed it, everything. And last second, the morning of it was supposed to air, they cut it off. And they finally said, well, because my executive called and said, hey, do you see who pays our bills? And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, if you ever run an article like this, Big Pharma is going to pull their advertising and we'll go bankrupt. And like they own 80% of all the marketing. So if you control 80% of the media or 80% of any business, you pretty much can tell that business what to do and what not to do. So they got it all figured out, unfortunately.
it's what
It's
they
like a
do.
mafia.
And unfortunately, they have our government hooked pretty hardcore too. You want to get reelected, you want to have, your, whatever you got going over here that might be actually like respectable. If you want to get the payments for that, you're going to do what we want you to do. Right.
Yeah.
And, and that goes for a lot of different things, but, it's, if you go down, not, we said the rat hole earlier because the rats are down the rabbit hole, but if you go down the rabbit hole, you're going to find a lot of rats. And, Rockefeller wasn't by himself. There's a lot of names that if people have been around for a while, maybe they've heard the name, whether it's, Adam Schiff or it could be, there was a shift then, like the shift we have now.
Uh-huh.
You had the Hearst family, you had the Vanderbilts. I mean, you had all of these names, Carnegie, JP Morgan, right? And
Mhm.
so, I
Yeah.
mean, all of these big names were involved in this stuff. And what all these big names have in common, if you look at traces and all the money coming from them, is really all they were as agents. They weren't like, kind of like a Bill Gates now, right? Bill Gates is really just an agent of a bigger cabal. And he's not
Mhm.
he's not a self-made person. His dad was a lawyer for the Rothschilds. Um, and that all came about. Like, it's interesting how he came to rise, and now all of a sudden he's really interested in your health, right?
Yeah.
Really interested in your, what you're eating. He wants to have your, all these farms. He's in with Monsanto and all. He wants the immunizations. Like, how do you go
Right.
from being a computer guy to being all of a sudden interested in everything that I need to do for me? Nah,
Right.
there's a reason, because he's an agent and he's pushed into this, and this is how they keep their money. This is how they keep their spot, right? And so, as conspiracy as that sound, it doesn't matter what it sounds like. What matters is if a fact's a fact, it's a fact. And
Yeah.
if you want to dig into this stuff further, like I have over the years, then you'll find the same thing. The problem is that they have such a control on indoctrinating us, and whether it's schools, where do most of your books come from? At least they used to in the public schools, where the Rockefeller Foundation, isn't that something? And
Mhm.
same with your colleges and all of these things. Why?
Right.
Right? Why? Because they're nice people, just
Yeah.
out there to, help it. They're philanthropic, right? They want to help everybody
Right.
out.
Yeah.
What they want to do is they want to keep you where you're at, and they want to stay where they are. That's what they want to do.
And they want
And
you to know
so,
what they want you to know, right?
exactly.
So
And
you
they have the power and money to do it.
Yeah. You mentioned a while ago insurance, and I think that's interesting because some people are people call and like, oh, I can only come if my insurance pays, right? And so that again,
Mhm.
that's a whole different side of this I didn't even really think about. But you're right.
Yep.
They they control you through your insurance because the insurance you have to pay for. But if nobody had
Hmm.
insurance, then healthcare would be much more reasonable, like in other countries, like in Europe. We have people from America that'll go to Mexico or go to Greece or go to Italy to get healthcare procedures, pay cash for it because it's like 10% of what it costs in America because they don't have insurance. They have it's all it's what do you
Scam.
call it? Yeah. And so if you want to go outside of the system, you have to pay for it, but it's cash. There's no insurance. So it's a lot less expensive. But if you have to pay for insurance, first of all, then they own the insurance companies and then they own the medical companies and then you paying a lot of money for your insurance and then that money just gets transferred over to the healthcare system through the insurance. I mean, it's just
Right.
it's it's killing us, keeping us poor.
And with managed care, not only that, with managed care, you can use it when we say that you can use it. So you're going to have to go through some hoops in order to actually use that benefit, but you're going to still keep paying us your premium,
Right.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, okay, you have 10 chiropractic visits, but you have $1,000 deductible, and your visits are, let's say they're $80 or whatever.
Uh-huh.
You never met your deductibles. You never get to use it. And it's
Yeah.
just, and the thing of it is, for chiropractors, or really any healthcare professional that's deemed natural, or whether it's homeopathic or whatever the heck it is, right? That
Yeah.
gets involved in insurance, you're really playing with the devil that puts you down to begin with, right? It was never designed for you. They allow you to come into it because they're really trying to take control of it, is really what it is. And when we do that, we allow them to do that. You're on a contract and you work for them. You get paid peanuts, and they run what you do, not you, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, shouldn't it be the doctor determining what happens? And not in our system. It's not. It's the health insurance. I get people all the time who maybe they need a hip transplant or whatever, but they can't get it because they can't get anybody to give them, they can't get enough evidence for the insurance company to want to pay the price for it, right? But they pay the premium.
Yeah.
I, I don't, so it was ingenious, really, none dare say, but it was really designed to keep people sick. I hate to say it, but it really is. And these guys are not good people, and their family members are still around. That, those families are dynasties. They're not going away,
Yeah.
and it's passed down. And, it's really only gotten worse. I mean, these people are the same people that are involved in wars. They're involved. I mean, you name it. they're involved in it, right? And so we're just here to talk about healthcare, but I think it's, interesting if you look at the people involved in that, it's the same people involved in anything else you want to talk about geopolitically that you think is maybe got issues, and their name will come up if you look far enough for it.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because even today, you'll see a lot of the same people involved in a lot of different aspects of the world.
Mhm.
But you're right, the bigger names, the bigger people that have been around for a while, well, they just branch over into everything. And so if they control everything, then, if they control the medical profession and they control how they get paid through the insurance, then they control the whole gamut. Banking, like you said earlier, if they control the banks, then they control who gets what, who can get what. They can lock up your bank account, which we've saw all over COVID. If you say something they don't agree with, they can lock up your bank account. What the heck? How do you do that?
Right?
Right. So they have full control.
Yeah.
And like you said, if they didn't have the banking lending model, then you're right. If everybody couldn't afford to go borrow $500,000 for a house, then houses wouldn't be $500,000.
They wouldn't. Nope.
Right.
So that's
Or
the thing that I think people, it's been so dang long and it's become integrated in society so for so long now that people kind of lose sight of all of this. And I think that, you know, it it began with these guys that, and it all came around the turn of the century in the 1900s. Like it really kind of all started 1900, 1901. They began all this stuff. And then, the Federal Reserve came in, 1913, and the IRS right after that, conveniently. So there was a Gestapo type organization there to be the grab guys, right? Pay us or else. And all these guys get taxed. They don't pay taxes. They have all the deferments. They created all the rules, right? And so they have everybody underneath in the peasant system, paying, taking drugs, all this junk. And I guarantee you, these guys aren't taking any of that stuff. They're taking all the, all of the herbs, and you can't get, patents on plant-based remedies, right? So they drove all that stuff away. And to keep them off the market, and they still do. And they just did it with COVID. They did it with a bunch of things. This isn't just a 1900 deal. It's a 2025 deal, right? It's happened as recently as 2020 to 2022 or 3, whenever that ended, right? And you're never going to see any of these entities push things, like what you and I do for sure, or anything that you could take that would actually be good for you. Because unless they could, mass produce it, patent it, and push it into their system, there's no reason for it, right? And plus, if it helps you out, what the heck good is that? That's a lost customer.
A few years ago, you probably have heard these stories before too, but I read an interview with a guy who created a so-called natural cure for diabetes. And he started producing it and manufacturing it and marketing it. And then all of a sudden, some big drug company came in and offered him $10 million for the rights to that mixture or whatever. I mean, what do you do if you're just an individual person and somebody's offering you $10 million? Now, could he have made 10 million selling his stuff? Maybe, maybe not, but it would take him a long time to do it, right? But here's somebody comes, I'm gonna write you a check for $10 million right now. And it was a company that produced.
Did you take it?
Yeah, he took it. I mean, and a company that produced a diabetic drug was the one that purchased it. So all they want to do is eliminate the competition. They had $100 million drug a year. So they they pay 10 million to get that off the market, and then they keep producing their drugs. So they know they just eliminate the competition, just buy them out. So there's things out
when you're talking money, the money that these guys got, you're talking 10 million or 50 million or 100 million. When you're speaking to revenues on something that could be into the hundreds of billions to trillion, that kind of money's chump change, right? Like you'll spend that all day long to keep away competition or to get rid of people, like we've seen, right? Or to get rid of, some breakthrough that, could actually help people. It's just never going to make it. There's a reason for that. But these guys were instrumental. And I think the smartest thing that they did was really getting, setting up the schools and setting up the whole system of it behind it. Because then you got an opportunity to indoctrinate a whole group, right, behind it. And that's really where it lies for the average person to kind of jump into this without any background, going like, man, this is just hitting me so hard. Like this sounds crazy, right? And it does sound crazy because it is crazy.
It is.
It's sadistic mass murder, really. I mean, if you want to look into it further, for trillions and trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They don't care about life. They just care about money, right? I mean, it gets to a point where, I mean, they're trying to
And
keep
control.
stockholders happy, and they do that. They got to make profits. I saw a story not too long ago too about one of the pharmaceutical companies, and they did the testing, and they found that like 0.1% or 2% of everyone that took this drug was going to die. And then they went in, they factored in, okay, so at some point, we're going to be sued, and the cost of this suit could cost us $100 million to pay off the people that died. Okay. But if we keep that drug on the market for 10 years, it's $1 billion a year drug. We make $10 billion in 10 years, but you have to counter that. We have to, okay, but we're going to have to pay off some people. We're going to be sued. We're going to have to pay off, and they credit this. Okay, we're going to pay 100 million in fines or in reimbursement to people who got injured, but we're still profiting, basically almost $100 billion, or almost $10 billion, right? So they factor that into it from the get-go, knowing they're going to hurt people, but they still look at it from a business model. They're going, how much money can we make after we pay off the people we kill? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, it's a high stake chips game. I mean, the guys, like, you go to Vegas and you go in, like, anybody will tell you, anybody that walks up to a table with $100 is gonna be 100, more than likely, on percentages, is gonna be $100 donator to the house.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to come in. You're gonna have to come in with some big money, and it's the big money and the big bets that, yeah, you can lose, but, like, your chances of winning are a lot higher by going in hard, right? And that's what these guys did, and that's what they do. And they had the influence, they had the backing, and they created all the systems. And so when you have the systems and you have you know, especially the schools, and you have that alone, and then you have the media, and you have the people that are creating the research, and you're funding all that, and you're blocking everything else. Hey, you do what we want to do, or you don't get a grant, right? Well, then those schools are all gone. It's
Yeah.
really simple. It's just an economics game. To think that it doesn't exist is, I think, insanity. I mean, at this point, you have to look at it and go, like, I mean, I think we could all probably agree that the healthcare system is in shambles. It has been forever. Every administration, is deemed to want to, we're going to fix it. It's never been fixed. It's not fixable, nor do they want it fixed. They just want it to continue to be the way it goes. And even with Obamacare, right? Like, whether you want to be, love or hate him, it doesn't matter to me. Like, what it is that it didn't fix anything, because you still have all the private payers, right?
Yeah.
And those guys, your Aetnas and your Blue Crosses and, all these guys, and, like, they're making big bucks and they're not going away. Why? Because they're paying it off, like we said earlier, to do that. And so all you did is you put it on so that some people get fined on their taxes now because they don't have health care, right?
Right.
Well, they can't afford it.
Crazy.
It was, and so,
So you think the
I don't know.
system's
I think
hopeless?
that
I mean,
hopeless.
is there anything can the system be fixed? If we had someone that came in like RFK Jr., I mean, he's already pointing things out, at least, we got to give him credit for at least showing us or showing people, I think, stuff that you and I have known, but a lot of people didn't know about some of the problems with vaccinations, some of the, just even the simple things like the stuff they put in our food that's not allowed in other countries, but they're allowed here, and the side effects. I mean, so I guess that's a start, but do you think there's any chance of ever flipping the script on the health system?
I don't think the system itself that we have right now is fixable. I don't think that we want it to be fixed. I think it was designed to be flawed, and it was designed to be what it is. I think that politicians are, not my favorite people on the planet. I don't even care if they're a good one, deemed good. I think, again, going back to, I don't know Robert Kennedy, and I don't know a lot of these guys, but, I know a lot about a lot of them. And, you know, they're really good at telling you everything and showing you nothing. And I don't think the system, I mean, would you want it fixed? I don't think that I would want, I think the system needs to be scrapped, quite
Right.
frankly.
Yeah, well, kind of like the
And
banking system, right? I mean, the banking system can't really be
right.
fixed either, right? We'll never overcome, what are we, 37 trillion in debt. So it probably needs to just be crashed and built back up
The
from
only
the
way
root.
you'd fix it is to get rid of the central banks,
Yeah.
right? And which would be a really big crumble, because everything's propped up on debt. And all of a sudden now you've got I don't know. I feel like, I'm not an end timers, but, like, we're running into some thick issues here, that it's been propped up and put up so high. Like, I mean, you got vehicles right now that are being sold for 100 grand that were being sold for like 40 grand, like 5, 6 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, how is that sustainable?
Right.
You've got these drugs that come out where they're thousands of dollars. And if somebody had, didn't have insurance, like how the hell would they get it? And we all know that that's not really what it costs or what it
Right.
takes to, you know what I mean? Like, and, nor do we even know a lot of it. Like, I mean, I guess I could say maybe some of these, a lot of these diabetic people probably could do a lot better with diet. There's a lot of things maybe health wise, but some of these things actually, I think keep, if your body's not making insulin, you probably need it. I don't know.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
so I think there are good things about, medical care, certainly like trauma care and things like that. Like, I think we could probably all agree on that. Like, if I had gotten in an accident, I was cut really bad or broken bones or whatever, like, I don't want to go to a homeopath. I want to go to the ER, right? Like, that's where
Right.
they're really like fundamentally, like, that's the forte, right? Like, but it's everything outside of that, like all these people being managed. And that's really like, I like that word, they're not, patients say, I take these pills and I don't have these symptoms and it's really working. Right. It's like,
Right.
well, I mean, you're managed, right? Like, if you didn't take them, you wouldn't be feeling so good. So, right. Like, so it's not making you better. It's
Right.
not making you function any better. Like, I think that's what's alluring for me, at least when I got into what I do for a living in upper cervical chiropractic is, we get to the core of issues. I don't think we're here, to say that we are, we're not treating symptoms and disease, but the body can function a lot better when it's free of nerve interference. Like, that's
Sure.
basically it. There's not,
Yeah.
it's subluxation complex, but we try to make it simple. And, we're not here to triage and diagnose and do all these things for all these people because that's just not what we do.
Right.
We just connect this back up and let it work. And like these allopath, these homeopathic and all these natural based providers, similarly, they're just doing it differently, right? And it is kind of an inside out or an outside in a lot of cases. But like, I mean, putting good things in your body also is a good thing. I don't think putting, you put bad things in your body, you're going to get bad results, right? So,
Yeah.
I think the system would need a lot of help to work the way it does. First of all, I think you and I both already know this. The philosophy behind it is completely jacked. It's not even it was designed to be. I mean, it's a sick care system. It's an outside in. It's you got to have issues before we provide solutions. And
Yeah.
gosh, I mean, I get patients like you do all the time where I went in for this and they did all these tests and it was thousands of dollars. And they
Mm-hmm.
told me, we don't know what's wrong with you.
Right.
Right. So now they got this big bill. Right. And so medicine's really been designed on, spending a lot of money on tests and to tell you what you don't have. Hey, good news. You don't have all this, but we don't know what you do have.
Well, or they
So
just
maybe you
put a
should.
name on something. They're all about getting a diagnosis. And then they give you a
Right.
diagnosis, and then what? Like, I had a patient yesterday, and they went to all these different doctors, ENTs, medical neurologists, all this stuff. And finally, they gave them a diagnosis. And I was like, okay, so they put a name on it. Now what? And they're like, exactly. Now what? And they're like, they said,
Mhm.
okay, well, you have in this case, it was Meniere's disease. And they're like, well, they finally I've had it for 6 years, and they finally told me I have Meniere's disease. And I'm like, and then what? And they're like, well, then they said there's really not much they can do. You can try this, you can try that, and it's like, okay, you got a name. Now what? So, and even still, if they did,
Whatever you do, don't go see an upper cervical chiropractor, whatever you do.
yeah, right. Don't let anybody mess with your neck.
Like,
Yeah, I hear that too.
uh,
That's crazy.
yeah. So, I think, there's a lot of, we're really kind of, I think, in a revolution time where hopefully we can get some changes, but I think the biggest change needs to come with, and I mean, this goes in our profession as well. Like it starts with philosophy and understanding, the function and it starts with, the basis of how we function. And if it doesn't start there, it doesn't, it's not going to serve people in a way that I think is ethical and reproducible to keep people well. Right.
Yeah.
And it becomes about money and it becomes about power and it becomes about, you know, uh, deplorable things that like these guys have done and like really like poisoning people, whether they put it into a water system or they put it into let's just throw this stuff over here and give it to this drug, right? And then we can get it passed and it's all good. And it's, I mean, how is that, how can that even be thought of is okay? And they're so good at blocking it out and getting people to not see that stuff and to a point where, and they build themselves up on another platform like like to take the Rockefellers, we're using those names. Oh, well, he was a really good guy and he did all of these things. Well, yeah, he did a lot of things that were deemed good, but he did way more things on the back end that were, you know, putting a lot of people, like probably people in your own family, in sickness and in unwell situations, because, we've all got people we know or that have used this and been sick or died.
Right.
I mean, and it's, I don't think the system's got any hope. Not the one that we have. I think that it's not a, a patch job or take it to the body shop. It's a total, like a car accident. It's total. Then we need to start over.
Right. So for people watching this, maybe they've never heard this before. Maybe they've not even heard that, that there's a approach outside of taking drugs and surgery. Obviously, first step, okay, waking up, right? Knowing that the system that's out there isn't really designed to make you well. What else can people do? I mean, obviously they can get their neck checked, but I mean, as far as, just research, right? I mean, we're in the information age. I always tell people just because someone in a long white coat told you to take this pill or have this surgery or whatever, do a little research before before you do something, especially something invasive.
Yeah, and not only research it, but take time to like critically think about it and like think about, you know, I'm a big dot connector. I think that, a lot of people think, oh, there's got to be like these hard facts and there's got to be show me the proof, but like whose proof is it? Well, I got science on this. Well, it's probably one of Rockefeller's research institutes throughout the lines that gave you, the that's fact, right?
Yeah.
Um, So, I think thinking about things and trying to make sense of it, look at how, everything comes around and, a lot of these drugs that are put out there block a lot of that stuff, right? Like, I mean, look at fluoride, for instance. I mean, fluoride's pumped in water systems, it's pumped in and, these guys are part of that.
Yeah.
And in your, toothpaste and whatever else. I mean, we were kids, you'd go to school, right? And every once in a while you'd have the fluoride rinse. They'd have
Oh
the
yeah.
fluoride things, right?
Oh yeah.
And, and this is stuff that they've used in other things, and not to beat a dead horse, but this it makes people docile. It crusts the pineal gland, right? Where critical thinking can come around and, your ability to kind of, creates being like a bit laissez-faire, right? Like indifferent. Well, that's a great thing to do to people if you want to keep them kind of like complacent about things you're doing to them. And it seems crazy
Yeah.
again, because it is crazy. It's pretty
Right.
messed up. It's actually mind blowing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So for those of you watching that are kind of like maybe a little bit in shock with what you're hearing, it's just open your eyes and be aware of what's going on around you, and look for alternatives. I always suggest people start with the least invasive first, right? What could do least potential harm? And I will tell you, that's another thing that they did well through the AMA is to make sure everyone was scared to anything other than medicine was quack, and you know
Hmm.
and you're going to go to chiropractor, you get a stroke, and then you even got medical doctors saying, hey, whatever you do, don't let anyone ever touch your neck, which is completely wrong and false. And it's just a way for them to kind of scare you away from actually getting real help, and not being dependent on their drugs and surgeries. So just look for other alternatives. Upper cervical is a great alternative, as Dr. Wolf will attest. We see a lot of their
Yeah.
failures that get well every day in our offices.
Well, and a good, there's Dr. Russell Blaylock, who's a, board certified. I don't know if I think he's still around, but anyways, he was is a neurologist, and he's got a lot of stuff. Speaking of information age, if somebody wanted to go on YouTube or go anywhere and kind of listen to that guy talk about, different neurotoxins like fluoride, or he goes into a lot of stuff. He's a really good one to listen to, and I think that there's plenty more of it out there. You kind of get into certain things and you start looking and you'll find other things and start connecting and looking. And, there's, I think the book, like we have like Shot in the Dark, there's all kinds of different things to look into. I think taking time to just research a bit, not just don't take my word for it. Don't take Dr. Drew, like listening to something. And if it resonates, then go look for it. Right. And kind of dig into it a little bit further. And I think that, anybody that really, with an open mind went into looking at that would find that pretty much what I'm saying is is spot on.
Right. Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah, I know it is. It's scary. And I've been wanting to have this discussion. And I know a lot of people at first are like, what? Really? But, you and I have been talking about this for years. So for us, it's kind of like second
Yeah.
nature. We just kind of know. But it's always good, I think, to be able to
Yeah.
share the kind of stuff that they're probably not going to see anywhere else. Certainly not going to be in mainstream because they don't want it there. So hopefully this will get
Yeah.
out.
When it comes up, yeah, and it's not just rhetoric or, this everything like I've spoken about today is, I've read or gotten through like different things. Like a lot of stuff I've gotten like even from Eustace Mullins, he was an author that was, he passed away in 2010, but most all of his stuff came from US congressional reports, right? So like, oh, what's your source? Well, it's a US congressional report. So
Right.
if you trust the government and that's, sounds like a solid source, well, maybe that's a good way to start, right? And he did Murder by Injection, one of his books. What a great book that is. And he's got the Secrets of the Federal Reserve. And those are some great starting points to kind of, if you want to jump in that hole and start looking into it. He's probably one of my favorites. And I think it's tough to dispute anything that's said in there. You'd have to really try hard.
Yeah, Creature from Jekyll Island was a good one on the financial side of things.
Ed
And you
Griffin. Yeah, that's a similar one to the Federal Reserve. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great book.
Google the
Again, all that stuff ties together. So like you start jumping in that rabbit hole, you're going to start coming into the AMA and stuff we were just talking about. You start going into you want to start looking into like laws in our judicial system and justice system. You're going to find those guys are all in it too. The Rockefellers are a big hand, and they're the ones who founded the Bar Association. So these guys did everything.
It's
And why
funny
is
how the same names show up in every aspect of life, right? They just laid it all down.
everything? Yeah.
They built it for their
Why?
own
Because
benefit.
if you have all bases covered, you're like, oh, there's no way they'd pull that off. How could they pay? It's because they have everything.
Yeah.
That's why it's
Yeah.
holding it, right?
Yeah.
And hey, you don't have to believe it, but you also, it is what it is. I hate to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much every single gas company came from Rockefellers. Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, every single one of them. It's a Shell. It's
Those are all
amazing.
Standard Oil.
Yeah, all Standard
Yep.
Oil.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
and so how many
they
trillions of dollars
he
is
was a
that?
monopoly, mostly selling to the U.S. government, making his fortune. And then, of course, they had to break him up, right? Well, they didn't break him up. They just created subsidiaries and all of your red, white, and blues, right? Like I
Yeah.
mean, it's so funny. If you
Yeah.
and I did that,
Oh, yeah.
you would have been shut down.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's the difference.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you control the government, by that point they already had control. So it wasn't going to shut anybody down. They were just saying, "Hey, we'll make you happy. We'll just split it all up and make it look good." And they're like, "Okay, yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah, you
funny."
don't want a monopoly that I'll just create 10 more companies that look like we're all in competition with another, but it's all going to my bank account.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, why not?
That's right. Well, I
Now we're
mean,
not a monopoly.
that's right. Well, they controlled everything, so they could do whatever they wanted, and they did. Oh,
Exactly.
it's just most people don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this is good. Anything you want to add, Chris, before we go? Thanks for this. This is eye opening for a lot of people, I believe.
No, I don't know. I think we covered a lot of stuff there, Ray. I appreciate you
Yeah.
having me on.
And there's so
Yeah,
many.
I
We can
think
do a
I
whole
just
podcast on insurance, a whole podcast on banking, a whole podcast on pharmaceutical. I mean, we could have gone on, and we just kind of scattered a little bit around of, kind of threw some
yeah.
lines out in a lot of different directions, but didn't reel them in. So
Yeah, I
good though.
think the thing for everybody to kind of get is like, and I think the thing that was a long time ago open for me is like all of these things, whether, like I said earlier, whether it's, whether you want to talk about finances or you want to talk about laws or you want to talk about media, or you want to talk about schooling or you want to talk about insurance or you want to talk about health, it's all, boom, it's
Right.
all there. It's all the same thing and it's all the same people, which is what's very confusing and to the point of earlier of like the subsidiaries of Standard Oil, like this is all just one thing that became subsidiaries of all kinds of other things, right? And it's a great way to hide stuff. And you just
Yeah.
create different people who lead different things. And so, well, you don't ever see the names that are really doing it and you see different names. So it seems legit. But if you track the money and you look into, other things and you start to see all these people overlap, it's pretty hard to dispute it. It just is. And then
Scary.
you look at where we're at, and you look at, you know, look at where we are in our healthcare system. Look at where we are in our justice system. Look at where we are in all our finance. Look at where they are. They're designed to be shambles. They
Yeah.
were never designed to be winners. And it's designed to keep people, in disparity, to keep people sick, to keep people broke, to keep people
Yeah.
at work, right?
And
And it's this wheel. I don't know. Once you get it, it's sort of like, for me, it's liberating and somewhat, like, I don't want to say exciting, but I mean, if I say exciting, it's once you start to figure it out. That's what I mean. I'm not excited that these people do what they do, but it's exciting when you start to put the things together and go,
yeah.
damn, man, this
There's a
is
part of it that's a little depressing, but then at the same time, once you recognize it, then you can kind of choose
yeah.
not to participate,
I've been through, another good book for people, and some people might think he's far out a bit, and he sure is, but like, Guide to Global Conspiracy by David Icke, I think, is a great book to put a lot of things together for people on a lot of different avenues. It was a book for me that I read back in 2011 after I'd, kind of known a lot of stuff. I mean, I grew up around this stuff. I had, how I got a lot of it was just, we had a neighbor that would talk with my dad, and I'd just sit on the steps and listen to them talk at the coffee table, and I'd read the books that they were talking about. I was 15, 16, and it made a lot of sense. And, um, so I forget where I was going with that, but at any rate, it comes together, and I think that it can be liberating if you can learn it and get to understand it a bit. It's not going to change it. Like my dad always said, I don't think you're not going to change the system, but I think helping people understand it, maybe we get more consciousness around it, and maybe one day we do,
Yeah.
that would be really cool. I think that, sadly, there's a lot of people sick and dying and, poor and needing food all across the world that really have been, put down by these people. And I think that it's, hopefully there's a time coming that can change.
Yeah.
We do our part down in our offices. I mean, we fight a battle every day,
Right.
in here. So, yeah.
Well, right now, I guess awareness is the best we can do. And then hopefully, like we said, we have maybe a consciousness shift that can change the world. We'll see.
I actually went in a little depression about it because it made me realize that, I was thinking, well, I had a lot of it figured out. And I'm like, dang, I don't have a lot of it figured out, because no matter what, even the most conscious person in this society, you're still mind controlled to a certain degree, because you're just in the system. You have a social security number. You've been through their schools. You sit and watch their media. You're around it all, right? Your whole perception, we're pretty much taught to see with our eye, or see with our brain, not with our eyes, right? So like, you've been programmed, and your eyes are seeing what it's programmed to see, not what you're actually seeing or hearing, right? And I don't know, that book for me was a really great breakout, and kind of understanding not just, these little things like we're talking about healthcare or whatever, but like a bigger perspective of like, how did this grid even get put together? Like, it's pretty impressive, actually.
So, Chris, thank you for
Yeah.
being with us. And if anybody wants to get in touch with Dr. Wolf, he's out in Seattle. Unbelievable cervical doctor. Been doing it almost as long as I have, but helped a lot of people. Open
Almost.
multiple practices, trained a lot of doctors. And thank you for being on, Chris. And appreciate everybody for tuning in. I hope you got something out of this. Just be an educated consumer. We'll talk to you soon.
That's right.